Welcome to Morning Motivation, where history's greatest minds fuel your grind. Want their secrets? Subscribe now and turn their wisdom into your legacy. Let's go.
J.K. Rowling was once a struggling single mother, living in poverty and facing rejection after rejection. But what if I told you that rock bottom became the foundation for one of the biggest success stories in history? Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. Joanne Rowling sat in the dimly lit cafe, her fingers trembling around the chipped ceramic cup of coffee that she could barely afford. The hum of conversation around her was a stark contrast to the storm raging inside her mind. A single mother, unemployed, living on government assistance, and battling depression. This was not how she had imagined her life unfolding. Just a few years earlier, she had been a promising student at Exeter University, passionate about literature, weaving stories in her mind long before she had the courage to put them to paper. She had always known she wanted to be a writer, but life had not been kind. The sudden death of her mother from multiple sclerosis left a hole in her heart that nothing could fill. The grief weighed heavily on her, leading her to seek solace in new surroundings. She moved to Portugal, hoping for a fresh start, but instead found herself in a turbulent marriage that soon ended in heartbreak. With her newborn daughter, Jessica, in tow, she returned to Edinburgh, Scotland, to start over. But starting over was never easy. The bills piled up, job rejections became routine, and her dreams seemed like foolish fantasies. The cold reality of poverty clawed at her every day, making even the simplest things, like affording a warm meal, seem like luxuries. Yet, amid the bleakness, there was one thing that never left her. The story that had taken root in her mind during a long train journey years before. A boy with a lightning-shaped scar, a school for magic, a world that existed just beyond the reach of ordinary people. The idea had come to her fully formed, as if it had been waiting for her all along. Even in her darkest moments, when she felt utterly alone, she found comfort in that story. Every night, after Jessica had finally fallen asleep, she would sit at her tiny kitchen table, pen in hand, scribbling down her thoughts. Her fingers would cramp from the cold, the heating barely functioning in her cramped flat, but she pressed on. She had to. Writing wasn't just a passion, it was her escape, her salvation. She filled notebooks with ideas, character sketches, and plot points. Slowly, her world took shape. Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, Hermione Granger. Their voices became clearer, their adventures more vivid. But with no money to even photocopy her manuscript, she painstakingly typed every word on a manual typewriter, rewriting entire chapters with every rejection letter she received from publishers. And there were many. 12 rejections. 12 letters from publishers who saw no potential in the tale of a young wizard. Each letter felt like another door slamming shut, another reason to believe that she had failed. But failure was something Joanne had become accustomed to. It no longer scared her. She had already lost everything once before. Her mother, her marriage, her sense of security. What was one more rejection compared to that? So she persisted. Then, one day, a small publishing house, Bloomsbury, decided to take a chance on her manuscript. It wasn't a grand moment, not the overnight success story that fairy tales promised. The advance was small, barely enough to live on, but it was something. And for the first time in years, something went right. The first print run of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was only 500 copies, and yet that was enough. Enough to spark curiosity, enough to draw in readers, enough to change her life forever. Word of mouth spread like wildfire. Soon, children across the UK were clutching her book, diving into the world she had so carefully crafted. The magic was real, not just on the pages, but in the impact it had on those who read it. Then came the American deal. Scholastic bought the rights, and suddenly, her days of wondering how she would feed her daughter were behind her. The book climbed the bestseller lists. More sequels followed. Movie deals, a fan base that transcended cultures, languages, and generations. She was no longer the woman sitting in that cafe, too poor to afford a second cup of coffee. She was J.K. Rowling, the author who had captured the hearts of millions. But the success didn't erase the past. She never forgot what it was like to be at rock bottom. In fact, she embraced it. She spoke openly about her struggles, about the days she thought she would never amount to anything. And in doing so, she inspired countless others, those who felt like failures, those who had been told they weren't good enough, those who were one rejection away from giving up. She had once believed she had lost everything, but she had been wrong. What she had lost were only illusions, illusions of security, of predictability, of an easy life. In losing them, she had gained something far more precious: resilience, determination, and an unshakable belief in the power of storytelling. J.K. Rowling's journey was never just about writing books. It was about finding strength in adversity, about proving that even the darkest nights give way to the dawn. And so, when she stood before a Harvard graduating class years later, delivering a speech on the power of failure, she spoke words that had been carved into her soul by experience. Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. And because of that, she built something magical. Not just for herself, but for the world. Life is a journey filled with peaks and valleys, triumphs and failures. Sometimes the lowest moments, the times when everything seems to crumble, become the catalysts for profound transformation. Hitting rock bottom is often seen as a moment of despair, but it can also be the foundation upon which we rebuild ourselves. It is in these darkest moments that we discover our true strength, resilience, and the courage to rise again. Reaching rock bottom is not a sudden event. Rather, it is a culmination of repeated setbacks, personal struggles, and, often, self-destructive behaviors. For me, it was a period of complete disillusionment, where every aspect of my life seemed to spiral out of control. I had lost sight of who I was, and my aspirations felt distant and unreachable. Whether it was the loss of a job, the breakdown of relationships, financial hardships, or battles with mental health, the weight of my failures felt unbearable. At first, I resisted accepting that I had hit rock bottom. I made excuses, blamed circumstances, and avoided facing my reality. But eventually, I had no choice but to acknowledge the truth. I was lost, broken, and in desperate need of change. This realization was painful but necessary. Only by accepting my lowest point could I begin to rebuild. With time, effort, and unwavering determination, I slowly started to rebuild my life. The struggles that once defined me became stepping stones toward a better version of myself. I pursued new opportunities, developed a sense of purpose, and gained confidence in my abilities. What once seemed impossible now felt within reach. Rock bottom, as painful as it was, gave me the foundation I needed to start fresh. It stripped away everything that was not serving me and forced me to rebuild with authenticity, strength, and wisdom. Today, I am not just someone who survived the fall. I am someone who thrived because of it. Hitting rock bottom is never easy, but it does not have to be the end. In fact, it can be the most important turning point in one's life. It teaches resilience, self-awareness, and the power of perseverance. When we choose to see our lowest moments as opportunities for growth, we transform our pain into a source of strength. Rock bottom, rather than being a place of despair, becomes the solid foundation on which we rise, stronger and wiser than before. Her story proves that failure isn't the end, it's just the beginning. If she could turn her lowest moment into a billion-dollar empire, what's stopping you?